potentially have a quorum, so we'll get to, it's 9 o'clock. We'll get underway here shortly. Before I call we have the roll call. I'd like to welcome all of you to the fourth meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Transportation for the 21 Interim. Before I call roll, I'd like to remind all those who are attending remotely, when you log in, you will be muted, so unmute your mic to speak. Also, those attending by video conference, when you answer the roll, please indicate if you're in your office here in Frankfort or in your home district. Of course, those of us that are here in person, we can also indicate that. Also, if you're attending remotely and you'd like to be recognized to ask a question, please use the chat function on the application to send a chat message on Zoom, and staff will be monitoring the meeting and get you on the list. All the meeting materials for today are on the LRC website under the Transportation Committee. We have a regulation on the okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about the regulation later. So that with that all said, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Berg, Senator Embry,
in my 6th Senate district in Morgantown.
Senator Hornback, Senator Smith,
Present, walking into my office.
Senator Storm,
Present remotely in my district.
Senator Turner, Senator Wheeler, Senator Wilson,
Present remotely in my district.
Senator Wise,
Present remotely in my district.
Senator Yates, Representative Bojanowski, Representative Branscombe,
Present in the room.
Representative Bratcher,
Present in Louisville in my district.
Representative Bridges, Representative Dixon,
Present from my district.
Representative Fleming, Representative Hale,
Present here in the room.
Representative Heverin,
Present remotely from the 18th District.
Representative Regina Huff,
Joining you from the 82nd District.
Representative Thomas Huff,
Present in the room.
Representative Lewis, Representative Maddox, Representative McCool,
Present in my district.
Representative McPherson,
Present in the 22nd District.
Representative Miller, Representative Santoro,
Present in the room.
Representative Smith,
Present in the 86th District.
Representative Stevenson,
Present in the room.
Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present remotely from my district.
Representative Thomas,
Present in the room.
Representative Westrom, Representative Wheatley,
Here from my district in Covington.
Co-Chair Upchurch,
Present in the room.
Chairman Higdon.
Present in the room.
Mr. Chair, record Ken Fleming in the room.
Okay. We do have a quorum, so we will proceed. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the August 3rd, 2021 meeting. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. The minutes are approved. We have a fairly lengthy agenda today, so we'll get right to it. First up this morning, Secretary Jim Gray, Transportation Cabinet. Secretary Gray, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am with you.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. And thank you so much for inviting me to join with you all today. I believe what I was asked to talk about today is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's the IIJA. And the best way to start this out, Mr. Chairman, is to say, as you and I have talked several times, is that this is still about speculation. You had asked me to talk about what we imagine our potential revenues might be and how that might impact us. And that's what I'm going to do. There's been a lot of conversation about how much this legislation, this bill might represent to Kentucky. And let me start by saying that what we have to do is look at what we've been receiving from the federal government in terms of from federal highways in terms of our revenues annually. That number annually has been roughly on an average $740 million. In the last year, we received $780 million. So if we project the $780 million forward for 5 years, that would give us roughly $3.9 billion. Now, the number that's been cast that Kentucky would receive through this new IIJA bill, that new number would be $4.6 billion. So you can see that the difference between 3.9 and 4.6, roughly $700 million. And that would represent the new money that we would actually be receiving over the next 5 years. You translate that then into annual numbers, it represents about $135 million a year in actual new money that would be coming into the state. Now, you compare that to the current total revenues from the gas tax and vehicle sales and usage, that's roughly 1.6 billion a year. That's been 1.6 billion this year in fiscal 21, end of fiscal 21. So that gives you a order of magnitude of how much more we would be receiving, and that represents perhaps about 8% of the revenues from those two buckets. So not inconsequential at all, $135 million a year, but neither is it a panacea. It's not such an enormous number that it satisfies the needs that we have, the pent up demand that we have for maintenance, for example, that many of you all on this committee know about because you hear about it and you've talked with me about your needs. You talk to your county officials, your city officials about those needs. So just to punctuate that one more time, the new money that would be coming in over 5 years, roughly $700 million, we actually estimate to be $683 million, but I'm just rounding it to $700 million. And that represents about $135 million a year. Okay, now of the $110 billion in the infrastructure legislation that's dedicated to highways and bridges, of that, within that 110 billion is our 4.6 billion. The competitive grants for which Kentucky would seek support, for example, for the Brent Spence Bridge, companion bridge, within that 110 billion, that is 12.5 billion for bridge projects. It's characterized bridge projects of regional significance and costs greater than $100 million. So that's it. The mega projects like the Brent Spence Bridge or like the I-69 crossover, the Ohio crossover. There's also $5 billion for a new program, the National Infrastructure Project Assistance, that will support multimodal, multi-jurisdictional projects such as the Brent Spence Bridge corridor. So bear in mind on the bridge projects, of regional significance, we have to compete for that money. We have to compete just like we've competed for infra grants, build grants, before that Tiger, and today it's the raise grants. Before, in the Trump administration, it was called build grants. Before that, in the Obama administration, it was called Tiger grants. So the point is that we will still have to compete for a project like the companion bridge for the Brent Spence. I mentioned the RAISE program, formerly Build, formerly Tiger. That's $7.5 billion for surface transportation projects of local and regional significance, and $3.2 billion for infra grants to support highway and rail projects deemed regionally and nationally significant. Now, think about the infra grant we got for the Mountain Parkway, and that was a project, that was an infra grant that we received just last year that supported the current project, the current construction of the Mountain Parkway. Now, also bear in mind, and Mr. Chairman, I know that you and I have talked about this, and Chairman Santoro and Chairman Upchurch as well. We've talked about the need for our state matching funds of about, so we projected that we'll still need to come up with 20% on those state matching funds. We don't know what, with the competitive grants, we don't know yet what that matching number might need to be in order to win those grants. It's been as much as 40% in the past. So in order to compete, we may have to dial that number up, is what I'm trying to say. The bottom line is that the IIJA, the legislation, just the acronym for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA still must pass the House. So everything to this point, what I said earlier when I started out of the gate, is speculation. It's all speculation. We're doing our best to back into what those numbers might be once they were released in its current form. And despite what we may be hearing, and I've already said this too, that it's no panacea. It would not replace funding that's being lost through motor vehicles, the motor fuels tax. And I'll dial into that quickly to say that we are up just nominally for 2021 in our motor fuels tax. That number went from 741 million to 748 million. And that's in the budgeted numbers for our motor fuels tax. So what you see is that we're still not moving up. Where we've had any increase or any benefits have been in the usage and the sales revenues, the revenues from the sales tax on cars and trucks and usage fees. So all of this comes back to, as I said earlier, I don't want to wear it out, but as good as it might be, this is still no panacea.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
We'll tell you a little story, Mr. Chairman, that I was at what's called the MASTO meeting, which is Midwestern States, the Association of Midwestern State Highway and Transportation Officials, about 2 weeks ago in Chicago. And I was with my counterparts in other states that surround us. And I felt a little bit like I was being picked on because they were all bragging about the new revenues that they'd gotten when they've adjusted their revenue models, which is something that I know many of you all have talked about and many have been interested in and actually supported.
Mr. Secretary, we hear a lot about inflation and we see monthly figures on Consumer Price Index. What are you seeing in the construction and road building industry as far as inflation?
Well, it's really unpredictable right now. We've seen across the board commodity prices really rising, steel prices, concrete prices, wood prices. Then they've settled down some. So it's, at this point in time, it's highly unpredictable. It has, of course, affected us on our bids and on our contracts. I've seen in the commercial building sector, in the transportation world, they describe it as the vertical sector of the construction economy. In that sector, some projects have increased as much as 30%. We have seen some of our estimates some of our estimates have been lower than the bids that have actually come in. But let me get back to you on I can give you a more detailed analysis on that, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we have Representative Thomas has a question.
Thank you for being here, Secretary Gray. It's always good to hear from you. Down on the I-69 bridge there, I'm hearing that Indiana might go ahead and start construction on the roadway that would lead up to the bridge, starting towards the river. Is there any talk that we might try to do the same thing? So during we federally ask for the bridge and that big chunk of money, that we might actually have it stubbed up towards the river?
Well, we're actually working, as you may know, Senator, we're actually moving right on schedule for a letting in November of the roughly 8-mile section that will come up to that will be an approach section. And that project is going to be led on a design build basis. 3 contractors have been pre-qualified. Contractor teams and engineering teams have already been pre-qualified. And the estimate for that project, I believe, don't hold me to this, but we budgeted in your the last edition of the road plan, the highway plan, I believe it was $180 million. So that work on the Kentucky side is underway. Is that the question, Senator?
That is, and Indiana has now committed. Are they starting in the same process as we are right now, trying to get it? Because I think they have a little bit more marshier area, don't they, to get through or so?
Well, I'm not real sure of the technical details on the challenges they have, but the governor made that commitment. Governor Holcomb made that commitment, and in my conversations with my counterpart, Commissioner McGinnis, they are full throttle on the project.
Thank you, Secretary.
Very, very strong commitment. So you're seeing the 2 states working together, which I've seen in a short time I've been in this role, that's always good when you've got a bridge project. The 2 states are working together, just like we're working together on the Brent Spence with Ohio. There's been good progress made in the early the environmental work that's underway and the analysis work that's underway for the Brent Spence companion bridge.
Representative Wheatley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is a perfect lead in to these questions. Secretary Gray, thank you for being here. And I know that the Brent Spence companion bridge will be a big part of discussions for the upcoming years. And some of the things that we just talked about with the cooperation of other states will be really important with this bridge. So a couple questions. As far as the Infrastructure Act that still needs to pass the House and has that consideration, do you know who will be submitting the grant? Is it solely one state that submits the grant? And related to that question, do we know if the contribution level will be the same for both states as far as if there is a percentage that we are to contribute? And I might have one follow-up on that, Mr. Sheriff, but I'll let Secretary Gray go.
Okay, Mr. Representative, I think your first question was, do both states propose for the grant? although we don't have the specifics, historically, that's been the approach. So historically, the approach for a grant project like this would be that the two states would cooperate and make the proposal. So that's what we would be doing with Ohio. All right.
All right. Yes. And the second part of that question had to do with the contribution level. Is the contribution level for both states typically the same?
It can be a 50-50. It can be a 60-40. In this case, I'm not real sure on this, Representative Wheatley, but I can get back to you on where we are with that percentage, with those ratios.
All right. Thank you, Secretary. And if I can just follow up.
Yes, sir. One more.
Okay. As you probably are aware, Secretary Gray, in my district, there's concern about the footprint of the current plan, and I'm checking in to see if there has been any reworking of a plan, any other additional work being done to at least re-examine that footprint and how it could affect specifically Covington.
Yes, sir. And the answer to that is positive and affirmative. I know we've had conversations with you, Representative Wheatley, also with Mayor Meyer and others in the Covington area. And the work that's underway today is examining the traffic through traffic analysis and traffic study, and is flexible. The engineering team has made it very clear, and Ohio has made it clear, Kentucky's made it clear, that we need to be flexible to new inputs, which would, in a hypothetical situation, let's say that the traffic study suggests that some adjustments can be made that would reduce the footprint of the bridge, then both Ohio and Kentucky are open to that.
Okay, great to hear. Just encouraging the perhaps new plan to be prepared, I guess, as quickly as possible, so we are ready when the grant opportunity is coming. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr.
That contract was just recently executed, in fact, with by Ohio, who's the lead in the project, with an engineering firm.
Thank you, Representative Wheatley. Representative Santoro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good hearing from you, Secretary Gray. I do have a couple questions. Number one, we've been pretty successful in the past on these build grants. Mostly we've been coming up with a 20% match or something. Lately, I'm understanding that we're not being successful on the raised grants because of our match. Could you elaborate anything on that?
Well, I've been told the same. My feedback has been the same, Representative Chairman Santoro, that we are seeing grant proposals. Our feedback has been that some of our competitor states have been dialing up their percentage contribution. So you can imagine that if we're at, say, a 20%, we're willing to go in at 20%, but another competitor state is willing to go in at 30% or 40%, then it makes it that much more difficult, of course, for us to compete. And that's the hazard that we would have. That's the competitive hazard and caution that I would issue as it relates to any of these competitive grants. I'm personally, just like you, am anxious about how much we can actually contribute as it relates to or vis-a-vis other states who have more revenues from their state side.
Thank you. Just one more. And on these mega projects, which is the I-69, the I-75, two big bridges, we're going to be in competition with the other states is the way I understand it. So we're going to have a lot of local match also in the event if we want to be successful on these.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now, all the details, Chairman Santora, have not been worked out. That's still in the process. But we have no reason to imagine that these grants would have any other requirements than the previous grants have. In other words, state match will be required.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I want to mention that to Representative Bridges and Representative Bratcher, we did get you both counted as present. Representative Branscombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Gray, good to hear from you as always. Had a quick question here. Obviously, 127 is a critical road for my area and getting that project completed. You were talking about some of the bridge projects and the bridge funding in the Infrastructure Act. My recollection is that I don't believe any of the bridge projects in the 127 are over that $100 million threshold. There's multiple bridges, but I don't know if any one particular is over $100 million. Do you know, my understanding is that there could be, that project is seeking some potential federal funding. Do you know which grant that is coming from? And also, I guess the second question is, if the Infrastructure Act is not passed federally, what are the implications to that 127 project if that is not passed?
Representative Branscombe, good question. Thank you. And you and I have had conversations about the 127 corridor project, and that it is today we are applying for a RAISE grant for the 127 project. That gives us a better leverage, of course, a better opportunity to leverage our funds. And that project is scheduled now, based upon our application for RAISE funding and federalizing more of the funding through that. That project is scheduled for a letting in the spring of 2022. What implications? Since it's already in the plan, we've already planned for it. I don't anticipate any implications to the 127 project.
Thank you, sir.
As a result of the IIJA bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Secretary, thank you, and I do want to thank you for your accessibility and all your staff's accessibility here in Frankfort. Anytime we have a question, they're always there to take care of it, and the district offices have been very good to work with, and we want to pass that along, our appreciation for that.
Thank you, sir. I want to say, whenever I get a chance, give a shout out, and you've done this and others have, to our legislative director, Kenny Bishop, who works with so many of you all on a routine basis and keeps us all plugged in over here. Thank you, sir.
We do have it. Another question. Representative Wheeler. Senator Wheeler, I'm sorry. Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary Gray, to what extent, if we were to enact a proposal similar to what was proposed in last session on the motor vehicle fuels tax, to what extent would that bring additional monies down to local levels like county governments?
Well, Senator, as you know, that our revenue sharing model is very specific, and it would take that number, just under 50%, right into the coffers of our local counties and cities and towns. So it would have a substantial lift, which is, I think, why so many county officials and local officials have supported an adjustment, an improvement in our revenues, because they're the ones that, I have the routinely. I counted that I had 5 meetings last week with county officials who were needing help through the funding that they were looking for was discretionary funding, because these particular ones had so much. They had roads in the 9 and 10 distress category. So answer to that is it comes down to a real positive for for our counties.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Gray.
Yes, sir.
Secretary Gray, we talking about the county roads. We'll shout out to Commissioner Lewis, the great work she's doing, and we appreciate she's on speed dial too for many.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Chairman, because she has very quickly adjusted to her role too, and she's made a lot of acquaintances out in the state.
Well, she has. Mr. Secretary, that's all we have for you this morning.
Okay.
Thank you for being
sir.
with us.
I want to stay on for Jason's presentation.
Okay, next up, Jason Suala with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and we're going to talk about highway safety. Jason?
All right, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Co-Chair Higdon and Co-Chair Upchurch and members of the committee for having us today. I'm going to share my screen and share a few slides. I know that these were distributed ahead of the meeting here today, and so just going to share. Can everybody see those as well?
Yes, we see it.
All right, thank you, sir. Just want to give a plug before I get started here. Please don't participate and drive. We're getting ready to talk about highway safety, and distraction is obviously one of the big challenges out there on the roadway as far as driver behavior. And so we just ask you to not do that if you're with us this morning. And in the materials that you were given for this meeting, this slide was in there with statistical information accurate as of about the beginning of this month. Wanted to share just a couple things before we move on here. We continue to see here in Kentucky over 50% of those who are killed in crashes that are vehicle occupants being unrestrained or improperly restrained. And, obviously that's a really simple thing that we can all do is we get into our vehicle every day as we're traveling to and from wherever we're going, make sure that we are not only, buckled in as drivers, but making sure that all of our passengers and anybody that should be in child restraint are doing that as well. And so we're going to talk about a few of these things kind of as we go throughout the presentation today. And I'm going to discuss a few numbers as we go through today, but obviously when we talk about highway safety isn't about numbers. Highway safety is about people. And when we talk about the things that we're going to discuss today, I do want everyone to remember that, we don't do safety programs or projects or anything else to improve statistics or anything else. We do it because we care about people, and each one of those numbers or statistics represents a person out there on our roadway. And so I'm going to share quickly just a couple of points that I've shared with the committee before, but just want to talk a little bit about our strategic highway safety plan. Our strategic highway safety plan is a kind of the umbrella document for highway safety that kind of sets forward our direction and what we're going to be attempting to do with our partners. Bold goal for this 5-year period, trying to prevent enough deaths on the roadways to be under 500 by 2024. Now, on that slide, a couple previous, you noticed that as of September 3rd, we were already over 500 for this year. And so we do have significant work to do. However, working together and some of the things that I'm going to be talking about here in a few minutes, we believe that we can get there. And so just want to talk about a little bit, we're focused on prevention in this plan. Obviously, when we talk about, driver behaviors or we talk about anything else, we can't change what happened yesterday. We can only change what happens today and from here forward. And so we have 6 emphasis areas within the strategic highway safety plan. And those are aggressive driving, things such as speeding, tailgating, and those types of things. Distracted driving, whether that be cell phone or any other method of distraction. Impaired driving, whether that be alcohol or under the influence of drugs. Occupant protection, so again, making sure that folks are properly restrained while they're in their vehicles. Roadway departure, which is basically trying to keep people in their lane, and a lot of those are infrastructure countermeasures that you see, such as signing and lines on the pavement and rumble strips and things of that nature, and then vulnerable road users. And one of the things that the committee asked me particularly to touch on today was bicyclist safety. And so we are going to be talking about that vulnerable road user area just a little bit. And I included this just for the members to have in their packets. But this slide explains, the percent of deaths and serious injuries that are attributed to each one of these emphasis areas. So I also placed a link in the packet for anybody who's interested in looking at the document as a whole. Just wanted to kind of put that out there for folks so that they could see that as well. Now, I'm going to dig in a little bit further, and I know this is a little bit of an eye chart, but within that strategic highway safety plan, and I don't need you to read what's on the screen right now, but within that strategic highway safety plan, there's a 2-page fold out, if you will, for each one of those emphasis areas. And this particular one that I'm showing here on the screen is for vulnerable road users. Now, a vulnerable road user is anybody that's using the transportation system that's not in what you would consider to be like a vehicle that has all of the safety features like you would have on a passenger car, truck, or a commercial motor vehicle. And so those types of folks are obviously bicyclists and pedestrians, those who ride scooters, motorcyclists, these types of folks. And the reason why they're in this vulnerable road user category is, again, they don't have all of the same protections afforded to them in their mode of travel that some of the other vehicle occupants would. And so the first thing I want to touch on talking about vulnerable road users is the motorcycle rider education program. And I want to thank those members of the committee here who helped us as we look to get the motorcycle rider education program to be aligned with the Office of Highway Safety here within the Transportation Cabinet during the last session. And that's this is a program that's been going on since 1992, trying to help not only novice riders, but experienced riders alike improve their knowledge of how to keep themselves safe, as well as educating others about watching out for motorcyclists and things of that nature. So it's not only focused on motorcycle riders, it's also focused outwardly on the rest of the driving population as well. So one of the exciting things that I wanted to talk about is the Vulnerable Road User Task Force. And a lot of folks, as we've been talking about this concept, have said, well, bicyclists and pedestrians and motorcyclists, they have different types of challenges. Well, they do, but a lot of them, there's a lot of common ground there as well. So what we're looking at is the opportunity to do not only things that benefit all of those user groups. And one of the things that I would like to say is to make sure that those with disabilities are also included within that pedestrian category many times. And so when we look at the opportunities that we have before us, we're going to focus on those things that are common to the three groups, but also we're going to be working with each of those groups individually. Again, the largest ones are bicyclists, motorcyclists, and pedestrians, to look at opportunities to improve safety for those groups and prevent crashes. So one of the things that we're doing is we have a vulnerable road user task force that we have worked to form. And the exciting thing about this is not only is this officials within state government and local governments and things like that, but we're also able to reach out to other groups like nonprofits, such as the Brain Injury Alliance, or advocacy groups such as for the folks that represent TJ's Law, the Kentucky Motorcycle Association, and bring those folks together to have a conversation about what we can do to improve safety for all of those groups. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that we're currently working on developing a new educational campaign related to bicyclists and pedestrian safety. It's going to be Bike Safe, Walk Safe, Drive Safe Kentucky. And this is going to focus not only on the safety of the bicyclist or the pedestrian, like the people that are doing those activities, but also the behavior of the driver and how they can actively watch out for those folks and look at those types of opportunities to make sure that they're doing their best to be able to prevent those types of crashes as well. A few upcoming opportunities that I want to mention quickly, as the chairman mentioned that we have a packed agenda today. we're going to partner with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration this fall to perform a pedestrian and bicyclist assessment. This is something that NHTSA offers to states as an opportunity to look at different program elements and how we might be able to work together with others to improve those sorts of things. And we're also working with the Transportation Center at the University of Kentucky on several projects related to improving safety and access for bicyclists and pedestrians alike. So in closing, I'd just like to throw out there to everybody that I think that everybody has a role to play in improving safety on the transportation system. And so we ask for folks to partner with us on the 3 I's: get informed about safety, get involved in improving safety, and get intentional about the example, in this case that I set or that you set, related to highway safety. And that's certainly something we appreciate. And with that, I would take any questions that you have and really appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Jason, and certainly appreciative of the task force that you've put together. I know it's important issues, and also the talk about a campaign to save lives on Kentucky roads. It's good to hear that, and I guess each of us on this committee and each of everybody listening today we can start with ourselves and do these 3 things, and that's very important. I don't see any questions. So Jason, thank you for being with us, and look forward to these campaigns going forward, and also looking forward to a report back from your task force. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next up, we have school bus safety. Alyssa Hanley with the Kentucky Department of Education. Are you with us this morning?
I am, sir. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Please identify yourself for the record and please proceed.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Alyssa Hanley. I am the branch manager for pupil transportation at the Kentucky Department of Education. And thank you so much for having us this morning. This morning, we are going to talk about school bus safety, training and technology. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And do you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
There, we see it now.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so what we're going to talk about this morning, as I stated, school bus safety, and what's involved with school bus safety. We have the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, or FMVSS. We also have school bus driver selection, the driver training program, and technology. So first, I want to kind of go over the safety standards that we have in place first. Here you'll see that there's 28 safety standards listed for the school bus. These are the minimum requirements by the federal government that must be followed. Kentucky goes above and beyond in several of these areas. And each year, a member of my team goes to the bus manufacturer to do what we call a pilot. This is to ensure that our buses are built to Kentucky minimum specifications. And in addition, each year there's a committee of school bus drivers, trainers, technicians, inspectors, directors, and at least one superintendent that will determine what the minimum specifications should include. We have an engineer from each of the manufacturers. Currently, we have 4 engineers that attend our meetings to discuss not only our concerns, but their concerns, and anything that might work better for our buses and new safety features that could possibly be added. Couple of the FMVSS requirements that you can't really see on this small screen are FMVSS 217, which establishes the minimum requirements for bus window retention and release to reduce the likelihood of passenger ejection and crashes. FMVSS 222 are the occupant protection requirements for school bus passenger and seating restraining barriers. This is to reduce the number of deaths and the severity of injuries that result from the impact of the school bus occupant against structures within the vehicle during the crash and sudden driving maneuvers. We also have Fmvss 302, which lays out the minimum standards for flammability for the interior materials. And Kentucky is the only state that uses Kevlar fabric with Kevlar jersey knit and Kevlar thread to sew the seats. And this prevents the penetration of fire into the foam cushioning and will self-extinguish when the source of fire is removed. We also use compartmentalization in our buses. This is where the student will hit the seat in front of them, where the padding and the structure of the seat absorbs the impact. NHTSA has recommended lap shoulder belts for all school buses because unfortunately, being hit from the front or back is not the only type of accident a school bus has. They can be hit from the side and rollover, which is where most injuries come from. However, Kentucky only requires the compartmentalization at this time. As you can see, the picture on the top left is a rollover. Had your car rolled over, the roof would be crushed. Fmvss 220 and 221 have strict requirements to ensure the roof's integrity. The top right, actually, I skipped one, I apologize. Fmvss 220 is our rollover protection. And this is to reduce the number of deaths and severity of injuries that result from the failure of the school bus body structure to withstand forces encountered in rollover crashes. Fmvss 221 is the school bus joint strength, and this is the strength of the body panel joints in school bus bodies to reduce deaths and injuries from structural collapse of the school bus bodies during crashes. And Kentucky buses are tested at the heaviest school bus that we have at 1.5 times. So that's 36,000 pounds at this time. Now you may see on the news buses have rolled over, but it's not often you'll see a bus with a crushed roof. Damaged, yes, but crushed, not often. And that's where we go back to this. The top left is a rollover, and had your car rolled over, the roof would be crushed. Fmvss 220 and 221 have strict requirements to ensure the roof's integrity. On the top right, you'll see where the bus roof moved but was not crushed to the point where children couldn't escape through the many exits that we have. And as you can see from the black line on the side, that is a Kentucky school bus. And at the bottom, this school bus is upside down and the roof is still kept intact. Students transported in other vehicles such as cars, vans, or even coach buses are not afforded these same safety features. So therefore, we do insist that our students ride in a school bus whenever possible. We know that if something happens, they have the weight and the safety of the school bus. And this is actually a recent accident from August 20th of this year. It was damaged on the side and the front of the bus, but what you don't see is the creek below at the bottom of that hill. The driver's skills helped help keep the bus out of the ravine. So with that being said, our driver selection and safety is also a part of school bus safety. The process of hiring a school bus driver can take weeks, if not months. And we don't take the safety of our children lightly. Some districts have even stricter requirements than the state regulation. We provide the minimum requirements, and the local districts of boards of education can expand on them if they wish. It's been hard to recruit, and one reason is due to all that is involved and the amount of time that it takes to get a driver on the road. For our training, once a driver is chosen and has gone through all the proper checks, they're trained. Our drivers have an extensive minimum 25-hour training program that includes both classroom and on the road, and most can complete it all in around 40 hours. And I say that because they get behind the wheel practices. Ours are just the minimum requirements, but most of the districts go way above and beyond to ensure that these drivers are ready to drive with students. Many people don't recognize that the training put into a school bus driver makes them professional drivers with professional driver's license that we entrust with our children. We expect them to follow the laws and regulations, bring safety concerns to the directors and to the state. We teach them to properly load and unload our most precious cargo and expect them to follow those procedures. And when they don't, unfortunate consequences occur. And just as important to driving is the ability to control the 60+ children sitting behind them. They're taught pupil behavior management and positive behavior management. Some school districts put monitors on their buses to help with student behavior. And just like there's a shortage of drivers, there's also a shortage of monitors on every school bus. And funding is a big factor of why many buses don't have school bus monitors. In addition to what we currently train, the federal government is requiring what we call entry-level driver training starting February 2022. So this is for anyone getting a Class B license, a P or S endorsement. And the school district will be required to provide specific training to ensure drivers understand their responsibilities as CDL drivers, not just school bus drivers. Therefore, additional strains are being added to the district, which may cause even larger shortage of drivers. Not all school districts pay people while they're in training, and our parents and communities cannot afford to go through 4 to 6 weeks of training with no pay. Many school districts provide training for people to get their permits, which is 5 to 10 days of training just to get a permit. And then through the Kentucky curriculum and the ELDT requirements. At the state education level, we have created our manual to include what is required for ELDT to help eliminate the need to add additional weeks of training. However, we had to include certain items such as logbooks, cargo handling, hours of service, and other areas. Excuse me, my daughter is sick and home from school. I apologize. But other areas that don't apply to us. We're also working towards creating tests for those needing their license and endorsements to be able to prove to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that they have achieved 80% on their knowledge. In addition, there's road and training and testing. Additional responsibilities other than KDE requirements include the training provider registry for school districts, where the district affirms that they're complying, and then upload the documentation certifying a driver has completed the training. They also need to run drivers through the Federal Alcohol and Drug Clearinghouse to verify their background doesn't include CDL violations in this area. This is an added cost per driver initially and annually. So one of the things I know you guys were really interested in are our additional safety features. One of those items is a GPS that can be used for routing, school bus location, and maintenance issues. Unfortunately, there's a cost for this and most districts don't purchase it. Also, the No Child Left Behind alarm system is on all of our buses. The drivers, when turning off their buses, are to walk to the back of the bus and turn this off. In the time doing so, they should be checking the seating areas for sleeping children. This system is designed to force the bus driver to walk to the back of the bus and deactivate the system before leaving the bus. If the driver fails to do that and tries to exit the bus through the front door without deactivating the system, the horn will immediately sound. Another item that we added to our buses back in 2015 is a backup light that give a clearer view around the back end of the tires. Stop arm cameras. Every day, thousands of drivers pass school buses while buses are stopped and are loading and unloading our children. By catching and going after those that pass stop buses, we're hopefully preventing that person from doing it again, and people become more vigilant because they understand that there are consequences for their actions. Unfortunately, districts have fought with their counties to prosecute illegal passing. This should not be a fight. It should be common sense. Although the law states the owner of the vehicle should be the person prosecuted, often they are fought in court and dismissed. Some camera companies now make it easier for the districts by linking directly into their system, and the camera company will file the complaint and with the law enforcement agencies. If a person passes a bus illegally, they should be fined, and the school district should also retain some of that funding and for the upkeep of their systems. These systems cost money, but the district doesn't receive the fund for their upkeep. It costs $350 to $850 per stop arm camera, depending on the type of system the district has, if it's in the front and the back, and if it's just adding the camera, or will it be the whole system. Taking the midpoint of $600 for 7,600 buses that we have on our roads on a daily basis, that's over $4.5 million to put it on all buses daily. School bus cameras. This can be the best friend when it comes to critical situations. The videos are used during an accident to see what occurred and help recreate the accident, and with student seating. Districts can learn a lot about what's going on the inside of the bus, both good and bad. Every school bus should be equipped with cameras and the cameras maintained. However, again, funding is a barrier for them. The camera systems alone can range from $1,200 to $2,600. Depending on the system and how many cameras that they have. These and the systems, most of them only include one camera for the base cost of the system. At $2,600, that's over $19.7 million for all of our buses that are on the road daily. Many districts are already put them on them. However, we still have many districts that don't have them and are refusing to put them on. This is something that we've discussed as having been added as a minimum specification item, and then allowing districts to upgrade or opt out if they have aftermarket cameras or are moving from one bus to another, as buses retire. But it is not something that's currently in our minimum specifications yet. We've discussed several safety options that are already allowed on our buses. Additional options include fire suppression systems, lap shoulder belts, traction control, and backup cameras with view in the mirrors. And for the future, I know this is also a big item for you. We're always looking at ways to improve the school bus while not making it so difficult for the driver that they're overstimulated and unable to watch the road. As with us on the road, drivers must be careful that when they look somewhere, they see where they're looking at, they see what they're looking at. Overstimulation can cause them to miss important things, such as a child caught in the door. They looked because they were trained to turn their heads, but did they actually see the child? There are many new items on the market and we want to test them. However, we require any product that's being tested to be no cost to the district. Many times we watch what other states are doing and ask questions. As the bus manufacturers add items to their buses, we're able to pilot the items so much easier. They will add the items to the bus, and when it's built, the dealer adds that item that we want to pilot and we put it on the road. We'll be testing the reverse door that automatically opens if something is in the door. There's a concern though about this one that we're working with the manufacturers on. We're concerned that unwanted persons being able to stick their hand or body in the door and keep the door open. The bus manufacturer has agreed to add an override switch that the driver can utilize. And we're planning on testing this in Jefferson or Knox County this month. They'll come back to the specifications meeting and give us their feedback. We also have the pedestrian detection, or often called sensors, to improve. Here you'll see that this product is being used on by a bus manufacturer. Previously, sensors were sold by companies aftermarket, and we prefer the bus manufacturer to have them tested and available for installation because we know that it's gone through their rigorous testing and they believe the product to be the best fit for their buses. This system shown has LED lights and will be able to turn on and will be turned on for the driver to better see what's going on. This in addition to the warning lights for the driver. So they have different views and different color lights that the driver will be able to see, in addition to a tablet where they can see what's going on around their bus. The last item, which I have a video for, is the Predictive Stop Arm. This is an audio alert system that tells students to stop if a car is about to pass on the left side. Something like this is a game changer for our industry. It costs about $2,600 per bus, and that's over $19 million, again, if it's added to all of our buses. So the video that I have, or had, bear with me, just is a quick overview to show how it works and what it sounds like for our students. And let me move that over here. Can you see my video?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. All right. Are you able to hear it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I will send that over to you
Okay.
guys so that you can see it.
Listen, we have several questions for you. First one is Representative Branscombe.
Thank you, Mr.
Bear
Chairman.
with me 1 second. I can't get it to stop. Hold on 1 second. I apologize. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that presentation. I wanted to jump back real quick to the bus driver hiring. I know that this is an issue for many of our school districts across the Commonwealth and the lack of school bus drivers. One question I had was that there are specific requirements that have to be met, background checks. While those are ongoing, you mentioned this is a time-consuming process, and probably rightfully so. It probably needs to be very thorough. But while that is going on, can a potential bus driver go ahead and start their driver training? Is there some overlap there while they're awaiting that background check?
They absolutely can. And it really depends on the district and what their processes are. Some districts help, as I stated, the applicant get their CDL. Okay, so there is training for that they can provide so that they can pass their permit testing, in order to get their CDL. In addition, they can certainly start our curriculum if they wish to do so. What some districts have found, though, is that while they're starting that, they're putting them in the classroom and then they're not passing their CDL portion, and therefore they've wasted their time as well training them. So there's ups and downs to doing that, and we absolutely give that freedom to the school districts to find what works for them. And depending on how comprehensive their CDL training is, they have a good idea of how many people are going to make it through the class. So yes, sir.
So that's district specific, a district.
Correct.
That's up to the district. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Senator Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Hanley, thank you for being here today. This one is near and dear to my heart. I recently litigated a pretty high profile case involving a little girl that was drugged a quarter mile by a school bus when she attempted to exit and was shutting the door and for well over a minute. And I spent quite a little bit of time traveling around the countries and looking at best practices and what other things were done. And I did notice that you put on the slide originally that they do drug testing at higher, at random and after accidents. I learned through litigation that that's been interpreted in some districts to mean the drug testing after accidents only when there's been a fatality or a citation. Is that your understanding, or is it just any accident that they should be drug testing?
So the school districts must follow the CSA requirements for drug testing after an accident. And so there's very specific situations such as the fatality, if the vehicle was towed, that they must be drug tested for. They're not required to drug test after every accident. However, some school districts do that. They have the option to implement that.
I saw that on our slide, and I think that for information purposes, every senator and state representative read that there's drug testing after employment when they're hiring at random and after accidents. And I think that if we're not going to require it after accidents as a minimum, we need to make sure that we're clear that that's not really the case, or we adjust that and fix it.
Yes, sir.
One thing that as far as the safety aspects, and it looks like we're trying to follow best practice from around the country, and I appreciate that. But it was sensors put on the buses. The danger zone, and I'm sure you're familiar with the danger zone. It's what they train all our bus drivers of. That's the area where children are most likely to be hurt getting on and off the bus. Placing sensors around the bus during that danger zone seemed like a very inexpensive fix, and it's on just about every new car you can get. Whether it's the entry level or not, the sensors. I did not notice that on your presentation. Are we looking to do that for Kentucky's children, to put the sensors in this way?
So the video that I wanted to show you that didn't show up actually was one of those items. And the video, the sensors, at least for this brand, actually has an alarm sounding that tells students to stop when a vehicle is approaching. And so not only is the driver telling the student to stop, but there's a sensor that does that. And so it is something that we are looking into. And one of the counties, Franklin County, is actually utilizing that right now, and they love it. So it's something that we will be looking at. Unfortunately, one of the issues that we have is we can put these items on new buses, but there's nothing that says that they need to be put on older buses. So the 500 buses that we get that are new buses have them, and then the technology is not put on to the older buses. So, but we definitely open up the door for districts to put on older buses as well. But we are looking at sensors. We've tested sensors in the past, and they just didn't fit the bill. And I say that in aspects to,
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
they were catching things.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry.
We have some other questions.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna stop you there if you don't mind. Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. Two questions for you. Just on curiosity, I know Jefferson County is short around 150 bus drivers. Do you know what it is roughly statewide?
I can tell you that we're over 750 drivers short. I don't have the information for all the districts, but that's about 115 districts that I know.
Okay, that's fine. That's I just want to ballpark. The other question I have is and I was talking to Chairman Upchurch and the staff, John, about the seat belts. And my understanding, seat belts, some districts have them, some districts don't. Could you give me just a little bit of a background on why wouldn't this be included in all the buses? And if not, do you have any statistics on reducing the number of injuries of the kids in the buses that do turn over or go on its side? And I do like all the parameters and requirements you put into the infrastructure of the bus itself. But can you expand on that?
Okay, I don't have any statistics at this time, but we can definitely see if we can find some for you regarding the injuries. But we have brought up seatbelts several times at our committees, and the school districts just are not comfortable at this time putting seatbelts on the buses due to fear of bus fires, evacuations for bus fires. If they are, if they have accidents that occur and end up in water. And so we're collecting data and still speaking with districts around the country that have had accidents and so forth with those situations to help the districts feel more comfortable. But in addition to that is the cost. There's a significant cost added to each school bus as seatbelts are added. So those are the two barriers at this time, the concern for safety and the costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bratcher. Representative Bratcher has a question.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry, I had it on mute and I went through the whole question. I'll go quickly. Thank you for the presentation. On substitute bus drivers, do you have any parameters on that? I mean, are they, like sometimes a school won't have enough bus drivers and they've got to get the kids home or whatever, and they get some substitute drivers. What do you have on that?
In regards to the shortage of and how many are needed?
Yeah, just for example, can a teacher just go out there and hey, we're short on drivers, we got to get this bus home. Can a teacher run out there and drive the bus? Is that a possibility? Or what is the protocol for when you don't have enough drivers that show up one day, if there is one?
Okay, so every driver that drives students must go through school bus driver training curriculum. So every driver on those buses are trained the same. So we couldn't just pull somebody from the school building to put them behind the wheel. We also have to do some of the same background checks like MVRs and things of that sort to ensure that they have the ability to drive, and they have to have their CDL. And so we have to make sure that they're legal to drive in addition to the training.
Do districts have shortage? I mean, I know there's shortages, but I'm just talking about stuff. What happens when you need 10 drivers one day and only two or five show up?
So there's a number of things that districts are doing. One of those things is combining routes. Another is, going, once they're done with their route, they're going back out and picking up the students that where their drivers are unable to pick them up because they've called in. And unfortunately, as you've seen in the news, we've got districts that are actually canceling routes. So there's a number of things that can be done. It just really depends on the district and their resources.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Hanley. I appreciate your testimony today. Just a couple of quick questions. One, you had mentioned the cameras and the cost of that and everything. I believe there's certain companies that will install them at no cost. Have you, is that true, or are you aware of that?
For the stop arm cameras, there are, and it really just depends on what the, if there's any type of regulation or put into place for them to receive payment back for those. They receive payment through the fines that are given to the driver. So it really just depends on what type of funding goes back to them, whether they're willing or not to put the cameras on the buses.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I've got one more question, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed. If it's, we're the next item on the agenda is bus stop arm cameras. So that just FYI, but please proceed.
Okay. On the training for bus drivers, it is separate from the cameras. I know you said there's some school districts pay for it, some don't. Just wondering, those school districts that pay for it, are they requiring contractual obligation for a length of time they have to work for that school district? Do they have a length of time to commit to it? And if not, I think that's something to consider, to where if we're going to pay for their school, their training and everything, they commit to a certain length of time so that we're not just training drivers. I've talked to some superintendents, they train them, they work a month and they quit. And we're actually just training them to go to work for someone else. And I just wonder if that's in place or if it should be in place.
Good question. And some school districts are doing that. Not all school districts are doing that. It's easier going from one district to another, where they won't transfer their training documents. But when they go out to the community and work for someone other than the school district, they've got their CDL and they've earned it, so that CDL goes with them. And although they have in there, that they may have to pay some money back, I don't know how successful they are in getting those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hanley, thank you so much for your presentation today. It was very, I guess, eye-opening, all the issues, that the importance of school bus safety. I will add, and I guess let you, most of the legislation that I've seen in the past on seat belts for school buses, they always mention not to upgrade current fleet, but any new bus that's purchased. Do you see that on all this safety equipment as a lot of states are doing that as they move forward, not trying to upgrade the older buses, but include this on new buses?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up, Representative David Hale. We're having we'll talk about bus stop arm cameras. And Representative Hale, the floor is yours. You can please proceed and I guess identify your guest.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Co-Chair Higdon and Co-Chair Upchurch and members of this Transportation Committee this morning. It's my honor to be here today, and I want to certainly thank you for giving me the opportunity. I am State Representative David Hale from the 74th House District here in Kentucky, and I have with me today a guest, and I'll let him introduce himself at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Roberto. Rego. I'm Vice President of Bus Patrol. And I have also with me here today Jean Soulier, which is the CEO and founder of Bus Patrol. He will be testifying later.
Well, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you all so much today for allowing us to come. And the previous presenter, Ms. Hanley, just briefly touched on the item that I'm here today to discuss with you and talk to you about. Our topics today have been centered around highway safety and also school bus safety. And certainly I don't think any of us on this committee or any member of the legislature would argue against that. We need to do each and everything that we possibly can to protect our students that are being transported on those school buses to and from school each and every day. And any measure that we can implement, I think, that would increase the safety measures is something I think we should definitely look into. One of the things that Ms. Hanley mentioned in her presentation of some of the things that she was speaking of, and she referred to several times as to the cost of these measures and the expense, and there was enormous expense to some of the things that she was mentioning there. But one of the things that I think is somewhat different in what I'm here to talk to you about today, and that is stop arm cameras that would be mounted on our school buses across Kentucky. And one of the things, and there are several vendors that do this, but vendors that we have contracted or not contracted, but have contacted and talked to are willing to install these cameras on our stop arms on our school buses at absolutely no cost to our school districts. Of course, these companies are in business, we know, to make money from that and make a profit from that, but the way that their costs would be recouped, of course, was as what Ms. Hanley stated, through fines that would be implemented and things that would be collected from illegally passing school buses that were stopped. And this is really a passion with me. As of last in our session of 2021, I actually filed a piece of legislation. It was House Bill 189, which discussed this and talked about this, and we were able to get this passed through the House by almost a unanimous vote. I think it was a 92-3 vote. And unfortunately, as things happen in sessions, and we all know that sometimes time constraints catches up with us, and we're not able to get it to completely to the finish line. I know last year, of course, in our short session, we were dealing with the budget issue and all the COVID-related issues, and those were very important. And there just wasn't time to complete this. But I'm hopeful as we proceed into our upcoming session in 2022 that we will give this some consideration. And Co-Chair Higdon, I just want to say thank you. You had mentioned to me at the conclusion of session last year that you certainly were not against this measure, and that you would give me the opportunity to come and testify before the interim committee and to present this. And so today, again, I'm just here, and I will be brief as I can be, because I want my guests to share with you what their company does and how they operate. But one of the things that is very important here is, and I can't really give you the statistics of how many violations occur every day or every year. I can go to statistical information, and some of those statistics give you thousands upon thousands upon thousands of violations that occur, and that may be correct, and I really can't verify that. But I will say this: if there is one violation that occurs of a motorist illegally passing a school bus, that's too many. And there's if there are measures that we could put in place to deter that or make it a penalty to do that, I think this is something that's very important to the safety of our children. And just unfortunately, very unfortunately, just last week in Perry County, Kentucky, a pedestrian was killed as he had taken his child across the road to get on the bus. And as he went back across the road, a motorist passed the bus with its stop arm out, stop sign still on, red lights flashing, and hit and killed this 43-year-old pedestrian, or 47-year-old pedestrian there in Perry County last week. And so you see, there is a problem, and I think we all realize that. We've seen that. We've all witnessed it ourselves. I'm sure we all have. But one of the things that's so hard to do is to actually catch these illegal acts in progress. Unless there is a law enforcement officer that happens to be right on the scene, it's very hard to actually catch these individuals, and there's very few prosecutions or convictions that even happen by those incidents that happen. And so what I'm proposing, and what I proposed in my legislation last year, and I haven't pre-filed a bill yet. I'm going to soon pre-file a bill, but I'm open to suggestions. I want this to be a piece of legislation that we could get through that would be suitable to people. I don't want to just bring this forth as my bill, but I'm open to suggestions. I don't want to do things that would alleviate what the bill is intended to do, but I'm definitely open to suggestions from members of this committee, from the chairs of this committee, or from members of both the House and Senate to implement this and to get this, hopefully this year if we can, across the finish line. So basically, just in a nutshell, what I'm proposing to do is to allow whatever vendor that we would come into a contract with to come to our state and install these cameras on our 7,600, I think, buses that we have in Kentucky. And this would be at no cost to the school districts, absolutely zero cost. But this is not something that I want to make mandatory. I would love to see every school district in this state implement this. But in my legislation last year, and I want it to be the same, or when I say last year, I mean in the previous session, and as we go forward with this, I don't want this to be a mandatory issue that they have to comply with if they so choose not to. But if they so choose to do this, the vendors that we are in contact with right now would install these cameras at no cost to the district. They would maintain them. The cameras would only be activated and would be recording when the stop arm is activated and put out. It would not be a continuous recording. It would stop recording then when the stop arm is brought back into the bus. So it would just be recording while that stop arm would be activated. And I want to just share real quickly a personal story. And this was so ironic that this just happened about 3 weeks ago, right on the road that I live on. I live in a very rural area of Kentucky, a rural road. And right across from my house, my neighbor, and I didn't witness this, but she shared this with me and my wife. And she knows I'm a legislator, but she had no idea that I even had a bill sponsored in the last session about this. The bus was traveling in a north direction on the road between my house and her house, right directly across the street. The bus had came to a stop. She had brought her second grade son across the street and for him to get onto the bus. And as she walked back across the road, right before the child had taken the first step up onto the bus, a car coming in the south direction had actually came to a stop as she crossed the road with her child. But then when she got back to the other side of the road, the car proceeded to go to proceed to pass the bus, still with the stop arm out, with the lights flashing, the sign out, and she proceeds and gets into the lane of traffic and literally stops this car from proceeding on past the bus. And I think there was some minor not confrontation, but some minor words and even gestures that happened because of that. But she was protecting her child by standing in the middle of the road, and she actually shared that with me and my wife. And my wife told her, she said, well, my husband filed a bill last year for that very purpose of that right there, to have picked up on who that individual would have been. And I guarantee you, members of this committee and everyone watching today, that wasn't the first time that individual had done that, had probably done that many times. And so just proceeding on just a little bit, again, I won't bore you with a lot of statistics of the incidents that happened, but if we could save just one life or protect just one life, it would be worth our investment there. And these monitoring systems that record these actions, and I've been approached by people that have actually made the comment, well, it's like we're spying on people. No, we're not spying on people. We are recording an illegal act that they are doing by passing a stopped school bus. And I will say this and stand on it firmly. I have absolutely no sympathy for anyone that does that, regardless of who that would be or even what the circumstance would be that would illegally pass a stopped school bus that is in the process of either loading or unloading our children. One of the things in my proposals, again, that we will have to work out in details, I hope, is the local law enforcement people would be willing to prosecute these violations. They would be willing to proceed on with this, collect the fines. Of course, part of the fines would then go back to the vendors to pay for their cost of the installing of the cameras. And of course, there's things there to be worked out. And again, I'll not go into the details of what my bill was last year. But I'm passionate about filing something of similar legislation. But again, in closing today, and I'll let my guest that is with us today proceed, I think this is a win-win situation for everybody. That it's not going to put an undue burden of expense upon our school districts, which are struggling right now incredibly. We know that. And the last presenter that spoke to us about the safety measures and the expense of all the things that they're trying to do to protect our children. This is something that I think we could move forward with that would not be an expense to the district. And I personally believe it's a very win-win situation for everyone involved. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, please, I'm going to let this gentleman explain to you the process of their company.
Mr. Rigo, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Please proceed, but time is getting away. Give us the Cliff Notes version, please.
Sure, I will do that quickly. I will pass on to Jean Soulier, which is online, and he's the one who will be testifying for Bus Patrol. So I'll let him go, so that will be shorter.
Thank you.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Jean Soulier. I'm CEO and founder of Bus Patrol. First of all, I'm greatly encouraged by what I heard from Mrs. Hanley, the focus and rigor that's going on at the state level in Kentucky. Having worked with states across the country, I think is amazing. And I think you guys are doing a great job. There is a way to accelerate how you provide school bus safety to kids. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. First off, we'll start off with some of the stats. And every year there are surveys that are done. In 2019, 131,000 bus drivers were asked to count manually how many times their school buses were illegally passed. The result of that survey was almost 100,000 violations over that day, so almost one per bus per day. The problem is very real. In 2018, what really shook the ground in the country and accelerated legislation, which I participated in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, New York, Maryland, Virginia. There were 6 kids killed during Student Safety Week in 2018. and there were another 8 that were put to hospital. And what that did was it caused the National Transportation Safety Board to publish a report, which is available for all you folks to download in April of 2020, which recommended that every state in the country pass legislation to enable robust stop arm enforcement programs. Since then, Bus Patrol is deployed on by far the most buses. By the end of this calendar year, we'll be on 25,000 of them. Next year, probably 50,000. You'll see the video on the right. These are just cars that are disrespecting the school bus. These aren't accidents. These aren't distractions. These are just pure disrespect. And that's the kind of behavior we're here to change. Now, here is a video in Suffolk County. First week of the program being launched on 5,000 buses. The stop arm is deployed, and you'll see the bottom right of the screen. A little boy goes out and then dives out of the way of the vehicle. These are scenes that we see every day. And the only way to stop them is to make sure that every single school bus in every community you have has a stop arm camera, so that everyone knows to respect that school bus. Our process is very simple. We use AI technology in order to gather the evidence, which ultimately gets put in front of law enforcement. That law enforcement officer, it's their judgment used as to whether to issue the civil citation or not. Once it's issued, Bus Patrol then mails the ticket, and the motorist can go online and see a video of their car illegally passing a stopped school bus. 95% of people pay upon viewing that video for the very first time because the evidence is quite compelling. Now, AI technology is the core to this. The only way you can afford to put it on every single bus, which is what we pay for, everything is 100% paid for by Bus Patrol. And the way we get paid is through the recovery of a percentage of fines. And AI technology is critical to being able to offer that. It's the only way to be able to effectively enforce the law. Here is an example of AI technology at work. You see the top left, the amber light signal is flashing. The stop arms are being deployed. And now all of these cars are being verified, monitored to see who's breaking the law. And that is essentially the kickoff point to us building evidence. Now, what we do is we make sure that there's an equitable distribution of technology. 100% of kids get protected. I heard in Mrs. Hanley's presentation the concept of we'll put stuff on new buses and over time get through. Well, Bus Patrol puts it on every single bus, new or old. We're actually working with the OEM manufacturers right now to pre-wire our technology in every bus off the line. And once you've wired a bus for enforcement, we also deliver all the internal camera features where our AI engine is capable of doing further monitoring. And this, again, at no cost to school districts. So the vision Mrs. Hanley was putting forward is something she can have actually today. And that's HD quality cloud connected cameras that can be pulled from the internet using governance and safety mechanisms. Our AI engine can actually determine whether a fight's happening on a bus or not, or if a kid brought a gun or a knife on the bus. All kinds of wonderful new AI-based technologies that are now available to schools at no cost. Also, these programs in every state bring jobs. We need field technicians, and we open up Bus Patrol academies and offices around the world, around North America. We've got offices in Suffolk County, Allentown, PA. Everywhere we go, we're creating 50 high-paying jobs to help keep people safe on the mission. And using data, once you have all of these cameras on every single school bus, it's no longer a guess. We can see what routes, what stops are the most frequently violated, and we can put up signage. We can help schools move stops and be proactive in offering safety. And the other thing we do is we make sure we build robust public awareness campaigns. And that is critical to anyone launching these programs. I'd like to show you a quick video that we put together for Suffolk County that was on all the major cable news outlets. Please enjoy.
As you approach a stopped school bus when driving in Suffolk County, what should you do if you are in this car or this car? New York state law says that in every case, you need to stop. With cutting-edge camera technology, Suffolk County is launching a program that can serve as a national model for school transportation safety. Stop for the bus. It's New York state law. For more information, visit suffolkcountyny.gov/schoolbus.
And it doesn't stop there. The advocacy platform using social media to educate people and make sure these drivers understand that their actions do have consequences is very important. where we can actually publish the law and make sure we're educating people so they know when they're coming on the other side of the road that they have to stop as well, because that's actually one of the most dangerous situations. And then building education content is another thing that's very important, and we do for all of our clients at no cost. Here's another quick video of the kinds of education content that we do to make sure little children can absorb the information that they actually play a role in their own safety. It's their little feet that cross the street. They need to be careful.
I'm open. Before we know it. Oh, look who it is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Driver.
All aboard, young'uns. Grab a seat and repeat after me. When the bus comes rolling. To go to a full stop before the doors open. Get on the bus, sit on down and sing this little pop. Now, children, this is important. When you cross the road, you all need to follow this code. Stay 10 big hops away from the bus so the bus driver can see you. Always wait for the driver to give you the thumbs up to let you know when it's okay to cross the road. Look left and right before you cross. And walk, don't run. Just like this.
All of this at no cost. You do never have to appropriate a budget for any of these programs. They are available to you. They cover every single aspect.
Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you to start wrapping it up if you don't mind. Like I said, we're running out of time.
Here. Just wanted to point out the last point is that 98% of people who get a ticket from one of these programs don't get a second one. And that's how we know these programs are working.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I'm open to any questions if anyone should have any.
Mr. Chairman, can I just
yes, sir.
Just
please.
one more quick comment. And the videos have been very eye-opening, I think, to us this morning. We certainly have already in place KRS statutes that prohibit this, but again, we're not being able to catch these individuals in the act of doing it. And I believe this would give us a tool that we could stop this or deter it tremendously from what we're seeing happen today. And so I would just encourage any ideas, suggestions. I'm certainly open to that, but I would love to be able to see us proceed with this. And again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity today. I appreciate that so much. And if there are questions for myself or anyone else, we will try to answer them. Thank you.
We don't have any questions, but it is interesting. School bus safety is important, and as the technology improves, and we're I guess the issue is how we deal with the state law the way we've been doing, where law enforcement enforces it, to where we're moving to a third party, where we have third party involvement. So there's the gray area that we had to work through, and we'll certainly have a lot of conversations about that. So thank you all for being here today, and appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Also on the agenda today, we have Administrative Reg 600 KAR 121.5E, which sets forth changes in the Motor Vehicle Commission, what they charge dealers and manufacturers. This is in response to Senate Bill 131 that we passed last session. That simply gives the auto dealers, Motor Vehicle Commission, the authority to change fees for licenses without, they can do it through administrative reg. So if no questions on that, I just want to make sure that you understand that passed through administrative regs with ease. And also we have today we were going to talk about billboards, but we'll probably talk about that in another meeting because there is currently some litigation going on with that issue. Also, I want to call attention. Okay, yes. In your packet today, there's updates from KSP and driver's license, and all that's going on with driver's license, and we've certainly been working with them, and they have at the end of the month, you probably saw an announcement that they are going to have a mail-in version for the driver's license, and that is a a big plus for all of us who are hearing a lot about driver's licenses. They also you can renew your driver's license online, and that's going over very well. Also on driver's license, they have a program. They've been working with the libraries across the state. I'm trying to find my notes here on that, and they've eluded me. All that's on the website. But do look at that, because I know all of you are getting questions about driver's license. Renewals, they can do them online or through the mail. They do not have to go to the regional office unless for the first time they want to get their real ID. So everything else can be done pretty much in CDLs, and CDLs still have to be done at the regional office. But we're getting a lot of questions on that, and I know that the Kentucky State Police with driver's license, that is ongoing. And if you have any problems or complaints that we need to pass along to the state police or to the Department of Transportation about driver's license and issuing of driver's license, please let me know, because they have worked very hard to make this a smooth transition. It hasn't been perfect, but it is a work in progress. And again, I want to thank all the members participating today, and especially with the schedule change, a 9 a.m. meeting. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October the 5th at 1 p.m., so you can sleep in that day. Any other questions? Seeing none, we're adjourned.